Okay, this will be a quick video showing how to import standard DXF files, Corel Draw DXF output, and Gerber DXF output, as well as to design the same basic sign using VCarvePRO. So I have a sign maker that is looking at grabbing a SmartBench, and in speaking with him, we just want to make sure that whatever software he's already relying for on design, we can quickly import those designs and vectors into VCarve to do the toolpathing. When he transfers from one product to one of his other machines, he often has to go through and do a lot of extra work on the vectors to get them to be able to be machined and cut clean. So here we go. We're going to create a new file, and we'll do a 4x8 sheet, 3/4 inch material, whatever. I mean, you can obviously do this. We're going to touch off on the top of the material, bottom left corner, and tell it OK. Now I'll have to rotate this when I send it out to the machine for the Yeti, because the Yeti, the X is the 48, 49 inch direction, and the Y is the 96 or up to 98 inch cutting area. But just let's import this the way it is, and then I'll show you how to rotate. So we're going to open up a file. These are the files that he sent to me. This was a DXF I'm assuming he's already manipulated and cleaned up, and it comes right in, no problem. It's already scaled to fit the sheet properly. If I click on any of the vectors, they are clean. I don't have to join them. I have other videos on how to join vectors using the join command, which is here. But these are all clean. So I'm just bring in his design, flip over to the cutting side, and we're going to tool path it. So I'm going to just assume these are letters to be cut out. And I'm going to use a 1/4 inch tool, 3/4 inch thick material. I'll do it in 4 passes. If I want to change it, I can edit this. And I'm going to set on up to cut on the outside. I'll do separate last pass, oversize the cuts by 20,000. And then the last pass is going to bring it so the edge of the tool is against that vector, and we'll clean up the witness lines of multiple depth of cuts. We'll add tabs and edit the tabs. I'm not going to do that now, but typically I would do that when I'm cutting. I want to add ramps coming in, and I would do a lead so that it's going to, rather than start on that line and go down to the depth of cut for the first pass, it's going to swoop in and then do it. What that can do is alleviate, depending on the material, a little bit of a burn where this is going up and down as it's coming in and out. So this will be a real quick setup. We're going to call this a profile cut, and the way I do it would be cut out, just so that the name makes sense when I see it on the console. Cut out, and I use a 0.25 and we'll tell it to calculate. And of course, I didn't select any vectors, so I'm going to have to select them. I'm going to grab from right to left, and anything that's captured partially inside that box will be highlighted, and we'll calculate it. So there's a difference between grabbing from right to left and left to right. One or more leads have been removed or clipped. So this lead that I've said here, the way it's decided to do the setup, couldn't do it. So we're going to look at this and see where it missed those. So that's got a lead in. If we start here, that's got a lead in. But there's no lead in on the inside cuts. So I can play with that or just let it cut. But that's got a lead in, that's got a lead in, that does, this does, the G does not, that does, that does. So if we'll look at the G, and I zoom in, we see that circular lead in and lead out to the start of the vector. So if I hit the right button here on the G and we edit node mode, there's our start, so it can't really lead in and lead out the way it was automatically drawn. So what I'll do is I'll just put it right here. I'll hit the right button and make this the start point. And how did I get there? I highlighted get out of node mode. So I first highlighted the letter that I was going to work with, hit the right button, and then went to node mode. And this opens up all the different vectors that we could work with. And again, at this point I can edit them, and that has now changed the shape of that G. I don't want to do that. I'll do Control Z or undo, edit, undo, move it back. But if I go to node mode, I can change the starting point. So now it's going to work in and out like this right there. So all I have to do is now recalculate it. So I'm going to pick up the same toolpath that I've already done and saved, but now tell it to recalculate. It warns us that it's going to cut through the material, and it should. One or more leads or clips. So that was good. But then these on the inside, it doesn't know how to handle them. So I've got all my basic letters working that way. I'm just going to let that go. So that works. I'm going to we'll preview it just so we can see what we have. reset the preview, preview all, and it's on high speed, so it's going to basically do it very, very quickly. And again, I didn't manually add tabs, and I didn't have it automatically add tabs, but I would do that so it holds the letters. If I double click on any of the debris, it gets rid of that debris. And there is our output. So that was the first file he sent me. Machined and ready to go. Just import, set the toolpathing, and go. If I wanted to nest this to get better use, I can, of course, do that. That's a different video. So I'm going to go back, and we're going to do the second file that he sent. So I'm going to say another new job. You can only import one DXF into, or one of any of the other CAD packages, into VCarvePRO at a time. In Aspire, it's an upgrade, you can import multiple files at a time. So I'm going to go back in, and I'm going to go to File New. You want to save your changes? No. And I'm going to open. Same defaults for 4x8 sheet, 3/4 thick. This could be, acrylics, 1/4 inch, whatever. I'm going to open a file. I'm going to take the second file. And this was out of Corel. And there it is. That looks good, but I'm going to center it now on the material. And if I need to check the sizes of anything, I can select the letter, look at the scale, and right now that is 21 inches tall, 21.81 tall. If I need to make it 22 or whatever, I can adjust it here. I'm just going to leave it the way it came in. If I need to scale it, I can do it right here. So these all look good too, initially, just grabbing them. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing. I'm going to tell it to, I want you to do a profile cutout. I'm going to select all of the vectors. Same tool. I'm going to be on the outside of it, so it's going to cut the letters and leave the letters. Do a separate last pass of 20 thousandths. I'm going to add tabs to hold the letters down, but I can place those manually. I'm going to add ramps. I'm not going to check that off just because of the time. And I'll do lead in, same circular lead in and lead out. And I'll call this profile cutout 0.25 mil and calculate. It warns us that it's going to cut through the material, and we want it to by 20 thousandths into this floorboard. Let it calculate. And then one or more lead-ins were clipped or removed. I get that, and it's going to be the G again because it's going to do it consistently every time. You see, no, it didn't do it consistently. So the B doesn't have one, so it's odd to me, but it's a different input when we imported it. So I'm going to look at the 2D view, and I'm going to zoom in on the B, sorry. I'm going to hit the right button to node mode. And once that kicks on, I'm going to zoom in. This has a lot more individual nodes. I'm just going to zoom in until I can grab one of them. And it doesn't have to be on a corner, it just has to be able to swoop in, do it, and swoop out. So I'm going to hit the right button on this one for whatever reason. Just pick this one, make that the starting point. And then recalculate it. Same information, calculate. It's going to cut through the material, yes. And then we'll see the lead in and lead out. One or more leads were clipped or removed, and that's the inside ones. So here we are. I need to do it on the A as well. On the 2D view, but everything else is there. All the other letters have it. I'm going to hold down the center button of the mouse and drag over. And then hit right button to go to node mode again. As soon as that pops up on any one of these, I'm going to hit the right button and make that the start point. See the green dot here? Again, on the refresh on the movie, you may not see it. I'll pop this open again, recalculate. Yes, we're going to cut through the material. And it's calculating here on the bottom of the screen. One or more of the lead-in and lead-outs were clipped. And so we are good all the way through. On the outside of the parts, we can do the same thing to the inside of the parts, but I'm just going to leave it. We're good. I'll reset the preview, preview all. And we're cutting them out. Again, I could have tabs holding these down. I could be holding them down with CA glue and painter's tape or double stick tape. You name it, however you want to do it. If I use a down spiral, I can pack the cut groove, and if I lessen my dust extraction, it'll pack it, and these parts won't move. They're big enough that they won't move. I can build a vacuum table for the SmartBench as well. I got customers customers that have done that. So that is done. So that's the second one. So we're going to go back into the design end of it, and we're going to import the third one. File, new. Don't want to save the changes, no. And again, this is slowing down because of the overhead of doing the videos. This takes a lot of processing power. And so I'm going to import from his folder. And you see this is output from the Gerber, and he said this is what he has to do a lot of tweaking with usually. And again, if I just select any of these vectors, they work well. They're not, I don't have to join them. They look good. So just an initial quick look is all it takes. I'm going to select all the vectors that I want to do, and I'm going to do a profile cutout. I'll use the same values that I did before. Add ramps. Again, I would add tabs and add a separate last pass. And do add ramp in and lead in and lead out. And we'll calculate, cut out 0.25 and more. Calculate. It's going to cut through the material. Yes, 20 thousandths into the scroll board. One or more leads flipped. Not a problem. This is a separate import, but we're going to see the same type of setups. So we'll have to go in and edit those. So again, the G, for whatever reason, doesn't have it because it's starting right here in this curve. And everything else has one. So we'll go back to the 2D view. Zoom in by scrolling in, hit the right button. I don't need all the nodes, I just need the nodes turned on for this G. So I'm going to go to node mode, and again, I can select any one of these that will give it room to do this. I think I have a 2-inch radius and 1 inch of lead in. So I'll make that the start point and recalculate everything. And we're good to go. So now I have all the outlines of the letters good, and I can do the same thing on the inside. Now the inside, I may have to take those vectors and reverse the direction of them, depending on how the lead in and the lead out works. So I take that particular move. But that's a different video, but basically you go to node mode, and then you can reverse the direction. So that's highlighted all the different parts, and I can delete the I'm struggling here. Reverse direction. There we go. I'm sorry, I just didn't see it initially. So I can get that to work as well. I'm just going to let these go. The idea was the importing for this particular customer. And so we are good to go everywhere. We preview all. And it opens up the 3D view from the 2D view and will show us our cut. Go to the 3D view. So there we are. If I were to design this from scratch, same type of thing. I'm assuming that's Times Roman numeral, but I am not sure. But it won't matter. I can design this from scratch using any of the fonts that I have on my computer. Do I want to save the changes? No. So for folks that don't use a different design software, we can do this exact same thing in VCarve entirely. So I'm going to put in text, and I can do it 2 different ways. I'm going to do text that fits a box. So if I'm trying to maximize the size of this, I can do ABC. And right now that's 96 inches wide. Well, I want to have a little bit of room, so I'm going to make it 95 inches wide. I want to have a little bit of room so I can make sure it's on the panel and I can come in and come out. So I'll take that and tell it to close it. And then while it's highlighted, I'm going to use the arrow keys to move it up a little bit. There's other move commands that we can use as well, using the transform objects, and I can move it up to the top, things like that. But I'm just going to manually nudge it up that way, so I did that. And that was ABC signs. So I'm going to do another box, and I'm going to type in signs. And with this, since it refreshes, if I want to change the font on either of these, I can grab whatever font I have in Windows. I'm just going to leave it with what we had, assuming it's Times Roman numerals. And I didn't look at the size of this, but I can adjust it here. It's taking forever to refresh here. There we are. So I'm going to make this roughly 14 inches, 15 inches, and see what it does. So if I do that, I'm going to drag it down. So 15 inches is a little tight, just visually, so I'm going to make it 14. That gives me an inch between, an extra inch. And again, I can nudge this up and down. So I'll let that go. Of course, I can nest this to further pack this. I can set it up where it would put this I inside this gap. It can nest inside the other letters. There's all kinds of nesting, but we're just going to let this go and jump over and do the tool pathing. I'm going to do the exact same tool pathing, nothing changed. I'm going to do an outside cut with a separate last pass of 20 thousandths. I'm going to add tabs typically, add a ramp in, ramp out with leads, and this will be the profile cutout using 0.25 dip, 0.25 and And again, the reason I do this and put the tool name in it, if, oh, it's no vector selector selected, so I'm going to grab them and calculate. Tool will cut through the material, yes. One or more leads were flipped. We've done this enough times. We know that sometimes it's going to do that. So 1, 2, 3, it's good there, there, there. So the B doesn't have it. Again, I can change it the way we've done it already on the B. Just grab any point in edit node mode. Grab any point, make that the starting point. I can add a starting point, add a new dot, whatever. But we've done this already on the B. So we just did, I think one time we did it here. It doesn't matter. So that's it. I've tool pathed it. Now the reason I do this is so that when I'm sending out saving the files, it'll tell me what the size of the tool is. And I mistyped it, so I'll go back in and rename it by hitting the right button on top of that name. And I can slide down to rename, and I'll correct the typing, so it should be at 0.25. And that just changed the name, so that's easy. And then when I save it to send it out to the machine, it would list all my tools, depending on what I select here, and I can group them together by which tool geometry is the same, and save those multiple tool passes or files, or multiple operations that I'm using the same tool on. I can save them to one visible file and one piece of G-code output. I don't have to load a new file for the same tool. Just merge them all together. So I like putting the name there, and I use a P rather than a decimal point because old legacy machines, if the file name, file name dot file extension, if it had 2 periods in it for the dot prior to the extension, it wouldn't take it. This system, we can have a period in the file name itself before the .gcode file extension, and it'll work. But I still use a P for the period because of the old machines. Anyway, so that's it. We're ready to send this out to the machine. So we've done it. We did an import of a DXF that was probably manipulated and cleaned, an import from Corel Draw, an import from Gerber output, and then designed the same setup entirely through vector. So the next step, if I was cutting these letters out, would be to nest them. The intent of the video was to show the importing and of the 3 different ways this guy has designs come into him or creates them for other machines in his shop. So let's jump over and nest this as if we were going to maximize material yield. I would go to the nesting icon. In this case, I'm going to leave a ½ inch clearance between parts. So that would allow me to do that swoop in and swoop out. I'm going to grab all the parts that I want to cut. And you're going to see a couple things. There's some issues with this because if I select this B, this line on the B, it selects all of these. So these are grouped together because when we designed it just a moment ago, they came in as it came as the text that we designed. So I need to ungroup these so that if I select this A, it just selects the A. So I'm going to select that, hit the right button, and say convert to curves. And now each of these each vector is an individual curve. So that does 2 things. That lets me nest the outside of this A, but I want this inside of the A to stay positioned with it the whole time. So I've held down my shift key. I selected the outside of the A, hold down the shift key to add to that selection, and I selected the inside, and then I'm going to say, hey, group these together. So now when I select this outside, it grabs the inside. So I'm going to do the same thing with the B, and both the inside parts of the B, right button, and group the objects together. So now each of the letters is a separate curve once I break the word signs into curves. So now each of these is a separate entity. So now when I go to do my nesting, I can grab all my different letters, and they're not letters anymore, basically, to VCarve. They're curves that have associated internal cutouts. And I'm just going to do one of each, and I'm going to set them up same settings I had in here, basically 1/2 inch between parts, a border gap around the border of the material of 1 inch so I can screw the material down or hold the material down. I'm going to rotate the parts to fit inside, assuming this does not have a grain or a look to it that we need to keep consistent across the letters. I won't mirror the parts. I could be using standoffs or something else on the inside, so I'm not going to mirror the parts, but I will allow the parts to nest inside the others. So I could put a letter inside this big gap in the C, or shove something up inside the break in the A, and tell it to go ahead and apply that, and then preview. It's doing the nesting, finishes it, and then pops it up on screen. So now I have 1/4 of the screen, of the material basically, left over to go back into my scrap pile or recut pile, however you want to phrase it. But that gave a good nesting of it, and then I would approve that, tell it OK, and then go back in and do the exact same. I don't have to change anything, just double click on it, select all the vectors that I want to apply to. Same information. I'm not going to turn on tabs yet, but I would add ramps in, ramps out. I'd add the lead in, lead out, blah, 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 and recalculate. Press through the material, yes. One or more leads were truncated, and yes, I know how to fix that. We've done that multiple times. Quick look, it's what letter? And that's kind of close. I can move that to here on the S, move that to here if I wanted. It is the A that doesn't have it. So I could change my spacing on my materials, on my individual letters that are nested. I could change it to 1/2 inch or just move where these are. But we've gone through this, and we know how to select the right button, edit node mode, and modify this A. We can unselect too if we want to go back through this, and it's just another step, and I don't want the video to get too long. Rather than select everything that we did here, I can select that, all of it, and then unselect the inside of these letters and get that ramp in, ramp out with the lead-ins to work. But we're just going to go with the nesting for now. That is ready to cut, ready to send to the machine. At that point, once we've done this, we save the file. I save it to the same job folder as I've saved my job, and then save the G-code there as well, and then transfer it to the machine either using FileZilla or Yeti Smart Transfer, which is an app that Yeti tool wrote to make it very simple to just drag the files onto a box on your desktop, and it's at the machine transferred through Wi-Fi before you can get up out of your seat. So there we go. Thank you for watching. This is Eric Schiller with YetiSmartBench.com. You can contact me at sales@YetiSmartBench.com or call 205-871-6618. I introduced the SmartBench to the North American market in 2019 as production was starting to ramp up. I have machines in the US, Mexico, Cayman Islands. Look forward to helping you. Thanks for watching.